My fellow grievers, have you ever had someone say to you, "Oh, you're so strong," when it comes to your grief, and you're sat there thinking, "Strong? Me? I could not feel further from that, thanks." If you have, you're not alone. And I know that this is regularly happening for us grievers, particularly because I was literally just having a conversation with one of my coaching clients this morning about this very topic. I always receive this when I'm told it with the intention that it is shared with. But I do have that little inner smirk because I also know that it's very much shared from a place of what strength means to society, the label of strength as always being put together, as being able to get back to normal, as not showing our roaring of our grief in public. I know that the people who shared this with me have seen the pillar of strength, me, per what society thinks. But that's not all of me. That is not my wholeness as a human. We are complicated, and we have those moments where we're on our hands and knees and we're roaring in our grief. And that is okay. So in today's episode of Death on the Daily, I thought let's root into a different space to that label of strength. Let's root in from the perspective of resilience. Because does resilience mean looking and acting and feeling normal? Does resilience mean always being put together? Does resilience mean not feeling like you're completely out of control in the eye of a storm? It does not. Resilience, in fact, is, for me, it's much softer. It's much more expansive and accepting. And actually, acceptance is a key pillar of resilience. Accepting that which is happening, accepting that grief is a part of us and our story going forwards, accepting that this human existence is messy and there's going to be times where we feel completely out of control, or like we're wading through mud, or we're on our hands and knees. Resilience embraces and accepts it all. But what resilience does is actually we can build our resilience by understanding that there is a well of resource both within us as well as outside of us that we can tap into and access. And if we are present with ourselves and how we're really feeling, then we can also understand, okay, what do I need in this moment? And how can I go and get that? Including understanding that we humans, we're not an island. We've got wonderful support networks that are there if only we should ask for that which we need in any moment in time. And I want to really start by acknowledging that my definition of resilience has definitely evolved in time. And I definitely had a warped view of resilience, particularly in the years of my life before our daughter died. There's always a before and after, isn't there, in grief? And our world completely transforms and changes. And actually, one of the beauties, the painful beauties of going through loss, of grief being a part of our human existence, is that there can be a real deepening of awareness and understanding of certain aspects of life. And so for me, before our daughter died, I used to think that resilience was definitely that, okay, yep, I put myself back together as quickly as possible. I move forwards like that swan gliding over the water, even if underneath the water, my legs are paddling like this. It's a view of, again, a view of strength that we have in our society that puts pressure on us to feel like we have to be put together as we're navigating the forwards path in our grief. What I've come to realize is that actually real resilience isn't that. It's about being open to this journey with all that it brings. It's about how we can, through intentionality, find deeper presence with ourselves, with how we're really feeling, with where our grief is sitting within our body. And really from that space, understanding, okay, how can I navigate this forwards path? What do I need? And I think that nature shows us resilience so beautifully in many, many ways. And I would encourage you, if this podcast resonates, go out in nature and just connect into where are you seeing resilience in nature, in the beautiful plants, whether you're in the northern hemisphere and they're in full bloom at the moment, or you're in the southern hemisphere and they are in winter mode at the moment, in that period of death. There is so much resilience out there. And actually, my business used to be called Green in the Grey. And that was really inspired by the resilience of plants going through cracks in the pavement. The fact that actually they had that inner belief in themselves to just keep going no matter what, step by step, to navigate through, to burst through that crack. And then in another image from nature, there's trees. And I love connecting into trees from a space of resilience. In fact, whenever there's a storm happening outside, I always connect into the beautiful willow tree in our garden. I watch those branches just completely swaying in the wind, and, to the point where you think, wow, how is everything not flying off of the tree? But it's that realization that actually, while there is that strong, solid core of the tree will get through this. It's not about, in resilience, the whole tree being completely unshaken. It's not about some leaves not, due to the storm, falling to the ground. It's actually accepting everything. And while those branches are flowing, it's about allowing that, but also connecting into that central core that the tree has, that we all has, that well of resilience whereby we can go out and, say to others, this is how I need you to support me, or to give ourselves the support that we need so that we can take those gentle and graceful steps forwards through difficult times. So I thought I'd share the 7 C's of resilience that were created by pediatrician Kenneth Ginsberg. I think these are really, really helpful. They were actually developed for children and teenagers, but I've seen them much more widely applied into this space. And what these are 7 qualities that can really support us in our forwards path through difficult times. For me, sometimes it's about really connecting in and being very intentional about how can I access these. But also, and actually in my work with clients, it's about acknowledging as well where we are already tapping into that well of resilience that exists within us. Because actually, I know from my own personal experience that we don't give ourselves enough credit for how we navigate through difficult times. If you think, we often just get through them and move on to the other side. So as I share these, you might want to grab your journal and just jot down, maybe push pause and jot down any thoughts on any of these about how each of those areas are already showing up for you, as well as how they could show up for you as you navigate your forwards path. So first up, we've got competence. And this is really about you being able to, having that competency to be able to navigate really challenging, difficult, and painful situations. And from my own experience and that of many, many fellow grievers that I've connected with, we don't choose this. It's forced upon us. And there is a path through this. So if you're listening to this and you're connecting in from that perspective of competence, I hope that you can see that in getting up each day, in taking steps forwards, tiny little steps, maybe some days, other days, maybe taking bigger leaps forwards, the fact that actually we are doing this, we are navigating this forwards path. Second up, we've got confidence. And that's really that inner knowing and trust in our ability to make decisions, to navigate really difficult and challenging things. And this doesn't mean that we're always going to feel sure-footed on that forwards path. Absolutely not. Resilience is not about always knowing where we're going and feeling really rooted and grounded in that. Resilience acknowledges that oftentimes we are faced with the uncertain. We're going out into a space that we haven't ventured into before. But it's really having that inner confidence in ourselves that we can navigate this forwards path. And again, I find that connecting into memories of the past of difficult situations I've navigated is really, really helpful. And for me, actually, whenever I am faced with really challenging times and I know I need to root into my resilience, I remind myself, hey, you really, really went through it. Your daughter died. You're going through a grief journey, having been through that experience, and you got through it. And there is so much of me thriving now that came through that and how I navigated it. So third up, we've got connection, which is an acknowledgement that we humans, we are not islands. We are built on our beautiful interconnections with others. So it's really about understanding that there are family, friends, other connections, including professional support that can help us as we need to navigate these challenging times or to process it in the aftermath. And really, from the perspective of connection as well, there's different needs. It might just be that listening ear. It might be someone who can help to advise, guide, and mentor us in that forwards path. It might be someone like a therapist or a coach who can help us to walk the path alongside us, with a therapist, for example, really looking at the past and healing that trauma, or with a coach looking at that forwards path and that rebuild into what does life mean without my beloved. And what connection does by way of boosting our resilience is it really does remind us we are not alone in these situations. It can bring a lot of comfort and a lot of support. And fourth up, we've got character. This is about knowing who you are, your values, that which makes you tick, and really staying true to that as you navigate through any situation, but also in particular in these difficult times. It means centering you in decisions that you're making. And I know, particularly when things are really difficult, that we can go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode, those fear responses. So it's really, how can you maybe just put your hand to your heart and bring yourself back to yourself, to that which is in alignment with you. And I found this really, really powerful when it's come to me navigating my forwards path with grief, is really understanding actually when I can take action in alignment with my values, with that which is most important to me in this life, which is actually lessons that I learned through the loss of our daughter, that when I stay true to myself, I also receive that which I need. I can move forwards with a greater alignment and a presence and a connection that's really rooted in me centering myself. Fifth up, we've got contribution. This is really rooted in your purpose, in how you create your ripple effect in this world. Now, it might be the aspects of, for example, your work or volunteering, where you're connected into community, for example, you're making an impact, you're tending to nature, any of those aspects. But equally, it can be in just how you show up in this world, in kindness, in compassion, in love, in welcoming of everybody. What this can do is to help to bring a sense of connection and a sense of purposefulness that can really help to support when it comes to navigating grief and other challenging times. And actually, it's really interesting, just me in the grief space, seeing the ripple effect that all of us grievers are creating just simply through how we're showing up, how we're speaking our truth in a society where grief is still so unspoken. I know from speaking to many, many people about grief, the impact of having someone who is willing to share their lived experience and how that opens up permission for others to speak their truth. Imagine a life where your workplace, where your family, where your friends, where no one will speak to grief, where no one will hold you in a conversation, where no one will share with you memories of your beloved who's gone, because they're scared of the emotions that might surface through the difficulty of those conversations. Imagine if that was your existence. Now, I see so much, and I just want to honor every single person in the grief space, whether they're doing it in a podcast like me, chatting about it on social media, or just in how we have conversations anywhere, in any room that we're in life. I just want to honor everyone doing this, because that is really, truly creating a huge, huge ripple effect on this planet. So sixth up, we've got coping. And coping really is about what is your toolkit of practices that can help you to cope in any situation. And it's not just about putting that toolkit in your back pocket and forgetting about it until you need it. Because actually, if you're unpracticed in those practices, it can be a bit more difficult, a lot more difficult actually, to pick those practices up when you really need it. So what it's about is a daily practice of that which helps you to find grounding, that which helps you to shake off tension or whatever else that you think that you need. And each of our toolkits will be personal to us. So I say, just follow whatever helps to bring you that sense of grounding, of calm, of peace, of balance, of joy, whatever it is that you want to bring into this toolkit, really connect in from that space of what really brings this energy into me. So just to share on my little toolkit, I've got daily meditation practice as well as daily movement. I actually have saved in my notes on my iPhone loads of YouTube links that I know I can just click on as and when I need for any situation. Those are of yoga classes, they're of somatic body movement classes, they are of more kind of cardio based exercise when I just know I need to just spend 10 minutes and just literally like move my body to the max to shake off all of that adrenaline or anything else that's coursing through me. I've also got breath work in there. I've got just loads of stuff that I know brings me different elements that I need to root into to help to support me in moments that are painful and are difficult. And it's also important to remember, again, rooting back into the connection, that these practices might be making sure that we can prioritize time to chat to friends and family. It could also be rooted in our hobbies. If you're creative, if you love gardening, add them in. Those can be really, really cathartic and help you to just find grounding and perspective when you need. And seventh up, we've got control. But this isn't about controlling everything in life. It's actually about understanding that which we can control and that which we can't, and letting go of any need to control that which we can't, but also understanding that actually we do have aspects that we can control. For example, in tapping into that toolkit of practices to really listen to ourselves and say, actually, things are feeling out of control because I have lost someone who is so beloved to me and I am roaring in my grief right now. What can I control? I know that I have a toolkit of practices that I can listen to my body and I can pick whichever one truly feels right for me. And I find this a really empowering one because this isn't about, again, denying anything. It's not about denying the fact that there is a lot that maybe feels uncertain, that feels messy, that feels blurry. It's about actually saying that, yes, that is there, but also it's the empowerment of where can I take action? And I'd say in the grief space, what I really feel is that there are so many actions that we can take just around that nourishment, be it through anything and everything that we love that can help us just to find that little bit of grounding or those little glimmers of joy that we can connect into. And before we close out, I thought I'd just share a few of my absolute daily essential practices for boosting my resilience, with the invitation to you to look within yourself, look within your life, to connect into anything that you want to bring into that toolkit and take forwards. So first up in my resilience essentials, we've got rest. Now, if you think about when we feel tired, when we feel depleted, that can make days a lot harder to move through. So really what this is about is creating the conditions for rest, whilst also acknowledging that our grief, that when we've been through a big shock, when there's trauma, when, like me, I've been navigating with PTSD, which wakes me up in the night when my PTSD is triggered, I know that the reality is at points in my journey, it's not about 8 hours straight. It's not about a quote unquote perfect quota of rest, because we want to cut ourselves slack. We want to give ourselves lots of grace and compassion. But what we don't want to be doing is creating conditions that are actually impacting our rest in ways where actually it's in our control to change them. So, for example, when I coach a lot of clients, I've actually, I think since about 2018, I've been quite strict on my sleep hygiene. And actually, I think I'll probably do an episode on that soon, sharing a little bit more around that and how we can create the ideal conditions for sleep. But sleep hygiene is really, really important because I coach way too many clients that when it comes to our phone usage, where they're saying to me, actually, yeah, I am lying in bed, I'm scrolling on my phone all the way through till late in the evening. And then it's the first thing that I pick up. That blue light from our phone, the screens just keeping us feeling alert and ultimately not helping the body's natural processes to wind down, not helping those hormones that ultimately govern our sleep cycle and help to send us off for a deeper sleep. So what this is really about is meeting yourself where you are and just asking yourself, what kind of rest do I need today? And what conditions can I create to optimize my rest? Now, it might mean if you are able to, having a nap. It might mean just closing your eyes down just for a minute in between, for example, when you've been on your screen all day and just having those little breaks or stepping away from your computer. Rest can also mean just stepping outside and staring at the sky, looking out to nature, staring at a tree for a few minutes. Rest can be many, many things. It's obviously anything that is really filling our battery back up. And it's remembering as well in a society that will often almost put rest as a bit of a reward. We've earned our holidays kind of vibes. It's actually understanding that rest isn't a reward. It's a requirement, not just for resilience, but for us to thrive in general in life. So put yourself first. Second up, we've got rituals in my resilience essentials. And rituals for me really do help me to find grounding with how I'm really feeling. I do a lot of grief rituals, whether that's with little flowers that I'll bring in and put on my altar, whether that's little moments out in nature where I make an acknowledgement to our beautiful daughter, Ngako Rayona, whether that's talking to her on the daily, lighting a candle. I've got a beautiful candle holder actually that dear friend gifted me after she died with her name and her birthday on it. All of these things just help me to find grounding and rooting and to bring meaning in as almost a wrapper around the grief that is omnipresent within me, that in some way, shape, or form I'm always feeling. But I find rituals really, really support me to access that, as well as to give a little blanket of love in those moments where I'm feeling it, perhaps even more deeply than others. It's really, really helpful to help me to process and to move forwards. And third up is understanding who's in my circle and understanding those where there is that emotional connection for me to be able to speak my truth, to have that safety that actually this person can hold this conversation. So ask yourself, who's in your circle? Who's there that can just give me that listening ear? Who can hold me in my pain? Who can mirror back to me, but mirror back with that acknowledgement of all of this existence to remind me that I am walking forwards, that I am step by step navigating through this. And that in itself is incredible. For all of us grievers, our journey forwards is one that should be honored with the right framing and acknowledgement and understanding of the really, really painful parts that we have to go through. So I thought we close out this episode with a simple practice, an acknowledgement that things can get tough, things can feel overwhelming, but a really easy practice that can root you back into yourself in a few seconds on any day. So if you wanted to join me, you can put your hand to your heart if that's comfortable and if you're able to do so. Otherwise, you can just lower your awareness. Just literally take your awareness into the center of your chest, into your heart space. And again, if it's comfortable to do so, you can just connect into your breath, maybe taking a deep breath, or just connect into your breath exactly as it is. And just in this moment, just giving yourself an invitation. I come back home to myself. With your hand on your heart, that sense of care and connection. Feeling that you're already holding it all. And actually, when you're present with it, you can also ask yourself, what do I need to give myself right now? And whatever's come up, what we want to do is go forwards with intention. Whatever you need to give yourself, today I will, or if not possible today, tomorrow I will. I will give myself that which I need. So that's a really simple practice that you can do on any day, that you can do in a few seconds, that you can do in a longer period of time if you want to sit for a few minutes and take multiple breaths and connect in. And sometimes the response might be, I just need to take a breath. I need to slow down. I need to stop for a moment. It might be, I need these foods to nourish me. It might be, I need to talk to this person. Listen to that inner voice, that inner knowing, and take action from that space. That is rooting you into your core, into your truth, into that inner compass of values that guide you on this forwards path. So we're nearly at the closing of this episode of Death on the Daily. And before we reach our note to self, and before I close out and say goodbye for now, and I'll see you very soon, I just wanted to share that if this episode resonated with you, if you received something from it, I would love it. And it would really support my Death on the Daily mission if you could just hit subscribe. If you're on YouTube, you could hit like. If you're on YouTube or Spotify, you can drop a comment underneath this video. All of that helps me to get the word out, as well as any shares to friends and families who need to hear this episode. So my note to self closes out every single episode, and it's a note that I'm either writing to myself for my forwards path, or sometimes I write it to a past self. Very much inspired by the notes to self that I started writing to myself in my grief for my daughter. I wanted to capture everything, including those beautiful little glimmers of purposeful insights that flowed through. So today's note to self is an acknowledgement. And I wrote to myself, in the darkest of times, I didn't think that I could make it out of my grief alive, but I did. It felt messy and uncomfortable, and I felt far from strong at many points. But just by being in those moments, just by being and doing the best that I can, that is my resilience. So wherever you are in your journey, just remembering that step by step, breath by breath, we walk this path forwards with that acceptance that grief is a part of us and our story. Knowing that all of those little steps that we take forwards, they add up, they multiply. They do truly make all of the difference in this life. And wherever you are in your journey, I'm always here. Death on the Daily is always here. And know that from my heart to yours, I am sending you so much love. All of my gratitude to you for joining me for another Dead Conversation. Death on the Daily is edited by David Strutt. The music is Set Free by Katie Gray. And I am Tanya Wilkinson. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would be over the moon if you can rate, review, and subscribe. It really, really helps me to get the word out there. And if you want to say hi or to hear more about my work as a coach and death doula, including how I support my clients to navigate their death on the daily, then all of the ways that you can connect with me are in the show notes. I'll be back soon with some more Dead Conversations. And in the meantime, take good care of yourself and others.
There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's something inside, and we'll never make